Hello. We are live. Okay. How is this going? I'm not sure if the audio is working. Let me know if it's working or not. But I think we should be live. Cool. Okay. If anything goes wrong during this, this is my first time streaming, so we'll see how this goes. Let's see if all of our cameras work. I've got 2 cameras. Yes. Okay. Sick. So today we are working on our level 1 certification rocket. So I've got a kit for this. I've gone and bought the Lock Precision high-tech kit. So just to guarantee my chances of getting the level 1 certification, I thought, listen, we'll give a kit a try. This is the largest kit I've ever bought. In fact, I don't usually purchase kits when I build rockets. I usually just scratch build them. But I thought for this occasion, I'd give a kit a shot. And so far, it's been a decent build process. I have started building it. Before I continue, let's just make sure the audio is working. It seems to be working. Sick. Okay, so I have started building this already. Let's see what I've got so far. So here I've got the airframe. If you haven't seen this rocket before, give it a Google, but it's quite a nice kit. I really like how it looks, but it's also a good size for a level 1 certification. You can also fly it pretty well as a mid-power rocket, so it's pretty versatile. It's got a decent payload bay, and it can fly on 38mm motor mounts. So bear with me as I get myself ready. Yes. I did not come as prepared as I thought I was. But essentially what we're going to be doing today is working on gluing in some of the fins. Now I'm using some ARRO epoxy here. This is not 5-minute epoxy. I've opted to use some 60-minute sort of work time, but more like 24 hours up to a week
to fully cure. So that was the thought process there. You can build these rockets out of 5-minute epoxy. In fact, you can build them out of wood glue if you really wanted to. The recommendation is at least use epoxy, like a 2-part epoxy. But I've opted for something a little bit stronger. Again, this is the first time I'm using this kind of epoxy. And so far it's been great to work with. So again, let me see if I can find the things I'm looking for right now. Bear with me. Okay, we are back. Okay, let's continue. Okay, I found everything I need. So for now, for today, we're going to be working on the motor mount. So far, I'll show you what I've done so far. I haven't done a whole lot, but here's our airframe. It's got fin slots, and here is the 38mm motor mount tube. So with most of these like through the wall fin rockets, so what I mean by that is the fins, which I've got here, the fins actually slot into the airframe, and that's mainly for like structural reasons. You can both like glue the fin to the motor mount tube as well as adding your fillet to the airframe. So that just makes it super strong. And if you're extra, you can add what's called as internal fillets, where you add essentially what you would add to the outside of the airframe to your motor mount tube as you glue your fin in. So most of these motor mount tubes, when you have through the wall fins, usually have 3 centering rings versus 2. And also because the motor mounts are a lot longer because they have to accommodate longer motors. Now, a L1 motor, what I mean by that is a motor of H to I impulse. So if you're not familiar with certifications, I should probably quickly explain what that means. There are 3 high power certifications recognized by EEE Rocketry Association and the National Association of Rocketry in the US. Essentially, it's a tiered program that forces you to sort of learn how to build rockets at different classes and basically pass a test before you can continue to fly them. In Australia, they've implemented what's known as a mid-power certification. So in terms of, it's all defined by impulse. So a mid-power rocket is a rocket motor usually from F to G impulse. So, as you go down the alphabet, the impulse doubles each time. So F to G is mid-power. L1 is H and I. L2 is J, K, and then L3 is L, M, N, O. And there doesn't really exist any commercial rocket motors past O. So unless you build it yourself. And then there's obviously different, rules and regulations around hybrids and liquids. But that's the gist of it. And so this rocket is my L1 rocket. Now, to be eligible to attempt your L1 certification, you must already have a mid-power certification and enough mid-power rocketry experience. Now, I won't spoil it too much, but I have attempted my mid-power certification and I have passed it. In fact, since there's only, there's around 4 people watching right now. That's not a whole lot of people. The next video I'm uploading is going to be about my mid-power rocket. Let's see, is there anything in the chat? the waiting screen is pretty sick. Thank you. I did enjoy that. I'm glad you did too. Okay. Let me just show you my mid-power rocket real quick because I think it's definitely worth seeing. I've got it here. Let me maybe change cameras. Hello. This is my mid-power rocket. So it's decently large and quite a bit larger than my low-power rockets. So low power would be A, B, C class engines. So this flew on an Estes Black Powder F-15 to about 300 meters. And if it looks a little bit simple, it's because I built this in about a day, or more like a weekend. I was in a bit of a rush to get this one done for a launch attempt that was happening the following Sunday. So I had to really get this done. There will be a video on this. There'll also be a video on my first attempt at a mid-power certification, which didn't go quite as planned. But that's just to give you a sense of scale. Now, mid-power rockets don't have to be this big. Mine just happened to be this big because there was a pretty short altitude ceiling of 1,000 feet at the launch event I was flying at. So it needed to go under that with the only motor I had, because these kind of motors are pretty hard to get your hands on. So yeah, I had to fly on, I mean, an F-15 is probably the lowest power mid-power rocket motor you could fly a rocket on. But yeah, that's pretty much my mid-power rocket. But the high power rocket I'm making is like almost pretty much the same diameter, quite a bit longer. So it can also be classed as a mid-power rocket. But anyway, that is certainly enough yapping. Hopefully all the stream is going well so far. It seems like it's working. Yeah, okay, audio seems okay. If there's a lot of background noise, I am outside at the moment, so there is a street right next to me. So I do apologize if that's, I've tried using, a decent mic for this. But anyway, so today, now that I've essentially glued on both centering rings with what is essentially 24-hour epoxy ARRO. It seems, it's not like fully cured, obviously. It's still, especially this, I glued this eye bolt in last. It's still a bit tacky, but that's sort of where you begin building this. One thing I will say about Lock is cool. They have a lot of great kits. I think it's just a coincidence, but I was actually missing one of these nuts, and like out of all the tiny components to not have on this kit, one of the nuts for the eye bolt, for context, this is where the parachute attaches. So this is quite a critical eye bolt. If this fails, you essentially fail your recovery. So I was missing one of them, and you can't really put this together without both nuts on the eye bolt. And so I had to just hunt down an Imperial nut. But like, I say this because a mate of mine also got a Lock kit, a Lock 4, and coincidentally that was also missing the exact same nut. So I don't know if this is like an actual issue. I'm just not complaining, just an interesting observation. I will say as well with the eye bolt, the instructions call to use 2 washers as well. I've got them here. I'll actually show you this. So it calls to use 2 washers on the nuts just to distribute the load, obviously, since this is kind of a critical location. It's probably taking the most load out of any component on the rocket. It calls to use, see if you can see that. Oh, it calls to use these washers. Now, can you see the problem? These washers do not fit on the centering ring. Not at all, really. And I don't actually have a file on hand or a Dremel, so I couldn't really file this down at the moment. So I've just opted to just put the nuts in, and that's pretty much distributing the load over the entire, what would you call that? The thickness, the width of the centering ring. And I'm not planning on flying this rocket on anything really above a H or an I. In fact, I'm planning on flying its maiden on a H motor, so shouldn't be any problems. Not too much load here, but yeah. So that's the justification for the lack of washers on this centering ring. So when you're gluing these centering rings on, you do have to be careful with alignment, obviously, because not only do your fins have to fit between the centering rings, but you also have to have enough clearance to fit your retainer. And that's another thing with lock kits. They don't come with motor retainers. You have to buy them separately. So I've treated myself. I treated myself to, excuse me, an ARRO pack retainer. One of these really nice aluminium retainers. See if you can, actually, some ASMR. It's nice. It's just nice. It's a nice retainer. You got to make sure you have the clearance for that. So how it goes together, you'll have your aft centering ring here, which I've already sanded all these down. You have to be careful to make sure you sand down all of the burnt laser cut marks because they don't bond well to epoxy. It's like you're not actually bonding to the wood at that point. You're bonding to just the leftover carbon from the laser cuts, because these are all just plywood laser cut components. It's pretty great to put together. But yeah, that centering ring goes on there, and your retainer has to go a certain distance into your motor mount tube. So if I push that in there, that's how that locks into place. And then that obviously screws on. But then you got to make sure this distance is perfect because these fins have to fit, and there's a bit of wiggle room, but that could just be filled with glue. So that's great. These already are perfectly aligned. The next step is gluing it inside our airframe, which is going to be a bit of a challenge for sure, because you have to get glue quite deep inside your airframe. Let's see. Yeah, so it's going to look like that. So you have to get glue all the way up in there. It's not going to be perfect, but if you put glue lower down, it will sort of push itself up. And besides the aft centering ring, you can put the most glue on. So once we glue that in, I reckon we will glue our first fin when we do that. That way, as the centering rings dry, if there's any glue that's sort of seeping, it will not get in the way of our fin. I'll show you what I mean. So, if there's glue inside our airframe and any glue gets on this part of the motor mount tube, I don't want it to dry into a bead that will prevent me from putting this fin in. So I'm just going to put one of the fins in first. That way we shouldn't have any problems. And the great thing about through the wall fins is that you don't really have to worry about a fin alignment jig because the fin's already kind of aligned. I'll show you. So I sanded this so it's pretty easy to slide in and out. There you go. So if I put this, see, I've got an up arrow on it. Oh, and I will mention I have sanded all the trailing and leading edges of these fins. I'll give you a good shot of this actually. So you got to sand. I mean, this rocket isn't for performance, obviously. This rocket is just designed to go up and down via parachute. Here, maybe get a good cross section if. I don't know, it's hard to tell, but it is rounded. And I've rounded the leading and trailing edges. But, if I really wanted performance, I'd round all edges. I'd maybe even give them a point to the trailing edge or something to really try and maximize the aerodynamics. But again, that is not the purpose of this rocket. This rocket is simply designed to go up and go down via parachute and ensure I get the certification with 0 damage. So keeping it simple, but I couldn't let myself just keep it bare, the edge of it. I had to at least round it. So that's what I've done. And the reason why you don't just round the leading edge, but you also round the trailing edge is because that's pretty critical aerodynamically. In fact, like your trailing edge geometry is almost more important than your leading edge geometry. Obviously, if you had a square top, it'd be pretty bad. But rounding your trailing edge ensures the flow of air over your fin remains laminar and it will become turbulent, but doesn't become as turbulent as it goes past the trailing edge of your fin. Because if you just had a square block off, you're going to add a low pressure zone. It's going to, encourage turbulence in the airflow. So sanding both is kind of the easiest way to just make it more aerodynamically reasonable than just a square thin. So that's what I've done. In the meantime, the tools I'm going to be using for this, pretty simple stuff. I'm essentially just going to use some wooden utensils to get this done. I've bought a pack from Coles of wooden spoons because I couldn't find any popsicle sticks. But they've got this great, I'll give you a shot of this. Obviously spoons are good for mixing epoxy, but they've got this great shape on the end of them for making fillets. So I've already done that. I filleted the, keep losing this modem actually. I've already filleted the centering rings with this method, and they came out pretty nice. You can see it's nice and shiny there. Nice bead. Now there's no bead under this centering ring yet. That will be formed once we glue it in, because didn't want it to get in the way of the fins. So that is the thought process there. Cool. We'll mix up some epoxy. Great thing about this, I keep forgetting, you have so much working time with this that it's actually no stress. So if I mess up, it's annoying to clean up, but it's not too bad. The only negative to using these kind of epoxies is that it does run. So for example, the fillet I added to the underside of this centering ring, there's not much you can do about it. It did run a bit. But I want to prioritize the top, not the bottom. No one will ever see this. This isn't too structural. As long as there's enough glue underneath this that it can't move down, which it never will. But that's how I sorted that out. So next step is, I've also got some skewers to just reach down some for longer, deeper into the airframe. So nothing fancy, I'll tell you that. Oops. Okay. So we'll mix up some epoxy with a spoon. Yep. You can also cut them to any shape you want to sort of apply it differently. Pretty easy stuff. Okay. I'll mix up some epoxy here, and we're just going to epoxy the centering rings. So getting epoxy, you know what would be smart? If we mark one of these sticks the depth we want, that's how I'm going to do it. So yeah, so you can't really see what I'm doing, but if I mark, you know what, it's longer than it is. Okay, so it's about 3 centimeters in from the end of the skewer, roughly. It's going to get smushed around anyway, so that's not too bad. So let's mix up some epoxy here. We'll give it a healthy amount because we are going to use a decent amount of this. That's probably more than enough for now. This stuff does get everywhere. It's very sticky. Of course it is, it's glue, but give this a good mix. And I will say 24-hour epoxy, or whatever this is like, what do they call it? High strength, whatever. Actually, I can find out exactly what this is. They call this super strength. Setting time 1 to 2 hours, initial bond 6 to 8, max bond 24, versus like a 5-minute epoxy would be 16 hours for max bond. Regardless, a lot more working time. It's got a very different texture to 5-minute epoxy. It's a lot, I don't want to say less viscous, but less tacky when you're working with it. And it doesn't smell, because presumably the reaction is happening a lot slower. So it's a lot less exothermic and, you know, a lot less, it's much nicer to work with. Like, I can't smell anything right now, which is crazy with epoxy. But yeah, it's got this like, I mean, presumably it's just micro bubbles, but like very different color, like a yellowy consistency. So yeah, it's a good amount. So yeah, the plan is, I guess we'll add epoxy for both centering ring locations. That seems like a good idea. If I missed anything in the chat, we got tips on cleaning epoxy on bare skin. There's not really, unless it's dried, like if it's just sticky on your skin, soap and water will work just fine. It's not like other glues that are more problematic. It's not pleasant, but if it's dried, I don't know. I don't know if you've got how you get dry epoxy on your skin, but like the idea is if you get anything on your skin, just clean it before it dries. Soap and water. Sometimes if I've got like really sticky stuff on my hands, I'll use like, it's not great, a bit of terps will get it off. You could probably, it's better off using maybe acetone or something if it's really stuck on there. That will dissolve the glue. That's probably the easiest way to do it. But yeah. So we will, I suppose, let's think of our plan of action here. I'll get another skewer, and I will, if I grab, let's get this out of the way. See how like relaxed this is without 5-minute epoxy? It's just a much better working experience. Excuse me. Because like, if I had 5-minute epoxy right now, obviously I would have had to have everything planned ahead of time, but you know, once it starts setting, if you got anything in the wrong position, it's gonna just look ugly. I've used 90-second epoxy before, just because that's all they had at the shops. Yeah, fun fact, the fins for the Gamma 4, my big water rocket, I'm sure you've seen it if you're on the channel, that was glued on with 90-second epoxy, and if you look too close at that, it is hideous. Not proud of that, but listen, it's not the end of the world. Actually, that's just going to be where that top of the fin slot is. So if I just mark, I want to get a little bit on there. If I just, so that will be the mark for our mid-centering ring, we'll call it. And then our forward centering ring, the skewers aren't long enough, so there's no point labeling it. Just get it in as far as I can. Not too far, of course. So that's that one. And so we'll start with our top one. So I said about 3 centimeters in. If we have a look at how this, whoops, that's crazy. That is crazy. Look at these tubes are great. They're nice and they're super light, but like super rigid. Yeah, let's make sure this doesn't roll. Gosh, I should have more than 2 hands. Yeah. There's 3 organizations in America, like rocketry organizations. Maybe. I know the Canadian one has a 4-level system. I think they, I can't remember what impulse classes they define. Excuse me. But yeah, a 4-level certification process, pretty interesting. So that's how far in for that one. Then, yeah, I wanted to just double check this again. Yeah, it's actually quite far in. Let's say it's, I can just mark the tube, or maybe mark just there. That way I know how deep I need to go. So I can use this skewer for that one. Cool. Not too complicated. So I should probably get a crack on. Actually, the thickness is going to help us here. Just keep twirling this. Don't want to get crazy amount. Whoops.
listen, there's going to be a bit of finessing to this. Now, I'm sorry that you guys won't be able to see a whole lot of this, just because it's pretty hard to show on camera. Let me know how the audio is, by the way, as well. I'm not too sure if it's too quiet, if it's too loud. Again, guys, first stream. Rate the stream, guys. How's it going? But yeah, feel free to like chat and whatever. Make it a vibe. Yeah, I don't know. This is definitely a different style of content, but let me know if you do enjoy it. Because I'm more than happy to do it again. Oops. Yeah, it's really quite something to get us in here. Actually, really was not a lot of epoxy I was mixed up there. Yeah, you guys can't see anything. It's kind of crazy. That's not too bad. I'm happy with that. So that's that one. Always have paper towels. Who do we have in the chat at the moment? Who's still sticking around? Mix up some more. Surprisingly, a lot needed for this. Don't want to get it everywhere now. Jeez. Always got to give it a good mix. Obviously, I want it to be homogeneous. These tubes are great to use as well. You know, guaranteed 50-50 distribution of your epoxy and hardener. Yeah, this is looking good. And now I'll use the skewer I've marked to get ourselves some glue where our bid setting is going to be. Pretty simple stuff, guys. Anyone can build these kits. Well, I say that. Never rush it. That's my, recommendation. We all have the mentality that like, oh, either that you're better than everyone else and you can just get your certifications. But like, there's a reason why there's a certification process. It's mainly safety, but like, if you rush into it and you don't know what you're doing, you're gonna be wasting like a lot of time and money. Just like, it's not, certifications aren't something you beat. It's not something like you're gonna, I beat this challenge. It's literally just a way of assuring your rocket club that you're gonna do things safely. And so it's not a competition, It's not about who can get there the quickest, the fastest. That's why like it's often not recommended to have the same rocket for your different certification levels, because it just kind of shows that you're rushing it, but doesn't mean you can't do that. Again, like rocketry regulations, like TRA or NAR, they're not laws. Now, some countries might recognize them as like, might have it in legislation that you must follow TRA and NAR laws or regulations, but they're not, at least in Australia, they're not laws. Doesn't mean, I'm not saying to break them. I'm just saying like, the whole process is not to, I don't know. It's not a legally binding thing. Again, it's just a matter of demonstrating that, you're not being stupid. This is looking good. I got a nice ring, 2 rings of epoxy.
Let me pull up. Yeah, let's see how well you can see this. Probably not very, but I can. So with that, I'm gonna shove this motor mount in. Now let's align this like so. It's gonna smear the glue. Push it in a little bit and then out. Make that flush. I like the look of that. Now, I am using my phone to record this. I can't exactly see much. Yeah, okay. Pretty simple stuff. Cool. I suppose now would be a good time to glue in our fins, or at least one of them. Now, I'm making sure it is in a very specific order. I have not put in the aft centering ring. This grants me access to the inside of the fin slots before I actually glue the fins in. So I can actually add, I'm not going to do like, I suppose I will be adding internal fillets of some description. They're not going to be necessarily beautiful, but like it'll allow me to add more glue to that. And that's most of the structural bond is from your, I suppose it's a combination of your external fillets and the bond that you have to your motor tube. But the great thing is, with 3 centering rings, the motor tube's already centered, more or less. So it's just kind of like Lego now. You just kind of like put it together. Not exactly like Lego, but yeah. So we'll mix up some more epoxy and we'll glue our first fin in, and we'll see if we have the effort to put in external fillets as well. I reckon we will, because that's pretty cool stuff. Who do we have in the chat? Got a few viewers now. Yeah, let me know what like certification you guys are up to. Obviously, I mentioned before, I'm on my MPR certification, so mid-power certification. You know, natural progression is to move on to your L1, and I will be doing more and more high-power rockets in the future for sure, because it's good fun. I've sort of done so much in LPR now, at least like different kinds of, I still have like things I want to do. I certainly will still be flying LPR rockets. Like, I've only flown my 2-stage rocket once. I'm afraid to fly it again, but I guess at this point now that it's got one flight, you know, I shouldn't be too afraid. You know, it's proven itself. I'm not too sad if I lose it, despite being, you know, I do like the way it looks. I'd like to preserve that, but it's certainly not the end of the world if I lose it. It's the nature of rockets. I've lost plenty of them in the past. So the plan is here. We will put some just inside the tube, glue it down, add some more internal fillets of some description. So we will need a lot of epoxy for this. And then we'll add our external fillets. Okay, that's plenty for now. I bought, I hope, enough of these tubes. They're not cheap, this epoxy, I will say. Definitely more expensive than 5-minute epoxy. And what you can do a combination of like 5-minute epoxy and 24-hour epoxy. For my purposes, I mean, this is kind of the most critical stuff. Your recovery gear, aka your eye bolt.
But your motor retainer with your centering rings, like it's got to be the most structural part, including your fins if you don't want them to snap off. So I would rather use 24 epoxy for this, but again, it's kind of a combination of higher strength but just easier to work with. I've I've worked with high fast hardening glue heaps in the past, and I've learnt how to be quick, but yeah, this is quite nice to just kind of chill a little bit. Now, what I've done, I've pre-prepared this. I've labeled all my fins in the order in which I made them. It's sort of fading off now, but I can tell this is fin 1, and I've also put an up arrow because, believe it or not, these fins are not symmetrical. One of these tapers is steeper than the other. So I just aligned all the fins together. I'm pretty sure it's the same as the instruction where the top taper is steeper than the bottom taper. But honestly, like looking at it, it's sort of hard to tell. But I've put them all so they're the same orientation. Either way, it doesn't change the root length at all, so it won't change how they fit into the slots, and it will fly pretty much the same. I'm sure plenty of people have put fins upside down in some of these rockets, but as long as it's consistent, it really doesn't matter. Like your center of pressure is not going to change nearly enough for it to be a problem. So what I will do, I'll perhaps use one of these skewers, because you can kind of get like a long thing of glue, and it's just the right consistency where you can kind of twirl it to keep it on. We'll rotate to fin 1. It doesn't matter what order you do it, but like if we've labeled them 1, 2, and 3, may as well do it 1, 2, and 3. Well, you don't want to put too much, it's going to get messy. Where are we at? 1. Whoops. Oh yeah. Oh, I realize I'm not showing what I'm doing. That's very easy to do. But we do have a bead. I'll add a little bit more. And do we have any more chats? What do we have? How much money do you spend per rocket? Great question. I mean, if you've seen my channel, I've got like lots of different types of rockets, so they do vary obviously a lot in cost. This kit, I mean, mostly the shipping is the issue with me living in Australia for these kind of kits, but probably $200 total for this one, including shipping. So definitely not super cheap, but also not crazy. With high power rockets, a lot of the cost comes from the motors, depending on what kind of motor you get. But low power rockets, you can build them for, I don't know if you've seen that video. I have an old video where it's cheap versus expensive, or is it noob versus pro, whatever, one of those kind of videos. It was kind of just a bit of fun, but where I had a $10 budget to make a model rocket, and I did build it for $10. So you can have them as cheap as you like, but if you want to get kits, they'll be expensive. Estes Designer Special, highly recommend if you just want to have some high quality parts for scratch builds. All of my best LPR rockets are made from Estes Designer Special. Give it a Google. It's just basically, oh, let me focus on this. It's basically just a huge catalog of different rocket parts, body tubes, to hold on. Multitasking. Yeah, it's
give it a Google. You've got nose cones, nice quality body tubes. Just means you have a little bit more of a nice experience making your LPR rockets, because it's kind of hard to source nice looking nose cones, or at least make your own. Same with motor mounts, because everything's very specific diameter. So yeah, that's what I'd say to that. Water rockets, pretty cheap, obviously. Yeah, I will say it just depends what kind of rocket you're making. Highly recommend, if you're already making rockets, branch out. Start making like different types of rockets. You'll learn a lot. Like, you know, I started quite young, but like learning how to build water rockets, you know, gave me a good appreciation for air pressure, you know. But then you don't have the pyrotechnics concern. But whereas with like a regular model rocket, there's still quite a lot of concern around causing fires and whatnot. So you kind of learn. Real rockets have both to concern about. So I don't know. It's a good experience. Anyway, I've added. Now I've realized I have a small issue with how I've set my stream up. Is that my phone is currently recording the top-down view, and my phone has a torch, which I do not have access to right now. So, sort of having to do this blind, but I have faith in the amount of epoxy I put in there. Don't want to be crazy, because like, you know, it's a rocket at the end of the day. Rockets need to be mass efficient. But yeah, Charlie Balderson, this is so slay. This is slay. We are slaying this rocket. Hopefully it won't slay itself. Yeah. I hope you guys are enjoying this. I don't know if this would be better with like music or something. That could have been a vibe. A bit of music in the background. But listen, for first stream setup, this is the best it's going to be for now. Do let me know if you want streams in the future. But I'm going to go look at this in the light if I can. Wow, that is noisy. Wow. Oh yeah, we got a bit of filleting going on. Not too mad about that. A little bit more on the left than the right. Tempted to add a touch more, so now I'm going to attempt the external fillets. It's definitely the part that's the most artistic to these rockets. That's not true. The paint job. Paint job is a functional part, by the way, guys. Like, I don't want to be seeing any bare kit rockets with no paint, you know? Don't be caught lacking with that. Even just like a single color, just give it a white coat and put something on it. I'm sure you've noticed that I appreciate putting a lot of decorations or decals on my rockets. Am I going to build my own motor? Depends what kind of motor. It's still pretty unsafe, obviously. Like, you can do it safely. Listen, I won't say too much, but I have tried the sugar rocket experiments in the past. I'm sure everyone's had that thought before. But I wouldn't say I did that in the most reasonable way. And I've learnt a lot since. And I probably won't do a sugar rocket anytime soon. Like, sort of no need. I can get my hands on normal rocket motors. I will say though, an ambition of mine that I've thought about a bit is a micro hybrid project, but that's quite my own developed microhybrid. If you don't know what microhybrids are, they are so cool. You should give them a Google. But they're pretty simple. But you still got to make sure all your geometry is correct. And you can buy like commercial hybrid motors as well for model rockets. You can still buy microhybrids as well on some websites, but they're pretty rare. But I have thought about that, but that would require quite a lot of development and quite a safety conscious setup, which is not easy to do at the moment. But yeah, that's my thoughts on that. If you're ever thinking about doing sugar rockets, BPS.space, Joe Barnard literally just tells you not to do it. And like, if you're the kind of person who hasn't done it before, you've just seen videos of it online, really consider what you're doing. Because it's not great. If you're experienced in model rocketry, then I'm sure it's good fun. But when I gave it a shot, I didn't have any real success with the propellant I made. Mostly because of the oxidizer. But I won't say too much about that. I'll just leave it at that. But yeah. You know what I did see? I saw recently on the, if you're not on the r/rocketry Discord, pretty great community there. Someone got permission, I don't know if you've seen the Mojave Sphinx, but that and another guy who made like a tiny liquid, they got permission to fly it at Balls, which is TRA's big like annual launch event. That was a cool video. Tiny little, engine projects that can fit into tiny rockets. Like, when I say that, I mean like hybrids and liquids. There's something about that that's just so cool to me. Just making something the size of like a low power / mid power rocket. It was an F Impulse, his tiny liquid. Oh, I should find who he is. I shouldn't be just saying this without saying who he is. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, this guy. Turbulent Sphere. He made this tiny little liquid engine. It's got an F Impulse. Fantastic stuff. Really love those kind of projects. Really simple, tiny. There's not a whole lot of details about how you made it, but I think the future of model rocketry might be in those kind of projects where it's just a little bit more accessible. Solid motors are great, but like the technical ability to make a biprop. I believe it was IPA and is it LOX or just nitrous? Can't remember. Anyway, guys, this is the big moment. We're doing our fillets. Now, this is going to require utmost concentration and thought. I'm just going to prepare my station a little bit better. Here we go. Do you have a good view of what's going on here? No. Listen, I can move this along a little bit. I probably won't be going for too long, guys, this stream. I was thinking of like even doing some painting. I'll talk a bit about that maybe. Who's still around? Who have we got in the chat, guys? Come on. Who's sticking it out for the long run? Yeah, but I won't be going for too long. If you got time. I'm not sure what time it is where you guys are. It's a lovely Sunday evening where I am.
nice and warm. Okay. Adding. Causing quite a mess here. It's not super easy to work with, the consistency. Oh, you know what? I'll talk about it in a sec. But I have experimented a little bit with filleting, not techniques, but I suppose they're techniques, materials. And maybe you'll see that better in my mid-power rocket video. I talk about it a bit. But anyway, tell you what, this is still kinda tricky. Doing it live the first time as well is crazy. You don't want to be, you know what, grab a freshie. Don't want to be giving yourself too much to sand post gluage, you know? So just getting the shape you want and just making sure there's no excess is your ultimate goal with this. So like, you'll put on a decent amount, you end up wiping off a decent amount of it. Just because that's kind of the case with a lot of gluing jobs. You know, you're working with tight tolerances, you don't need a whole lot of glue as long as you put it in the right spot. Axu115, I presume that's you answering who's sticking it out for the long run. I appreciate it. Yeah, this is interesting. I've watched plenty of streams in the past, obviously, you know, chronically online. No. But you know, I wasn't sure what to expect going into this, but it's fun. I enjoy it. I see why people do it. It's kind of just talk to yourself a lot, but turn up the volume. That's a very, let's see how I sound. Yeah, it is a bit quiet. I'll turn it up. Let's see. Very noob at this. Let's see. Test. No, it's still a bit quiet. Test. Oh, was that better? I'll turn it back.
Test, test. Yeah, it's not too bad, right? I think it's just because I was too far away from the microphone. I apologize. Got a bit carried away. But yeah. Alright. We are good. Thing is about epoxy, like, oh, I think that's something me. Thing is about epoxy, it gives you like a nice finish if you've got like a nice, good shape to your epoxy. Like it's not too lumpy or anything. It finishes nice when you add paint. Like, I'll maybe show you an example of what I mean, but I'm not sure how long I've been going for. This is good though. This is like a good introduction to streaming for me because it will give me the confidence to do it again, I reckon. Yeah, you just have to send it. Yeah, it's fun. Still have a few viewers. Hope you're enjoying what's going on. If you've arrived not long ago, this is my L1 certification rocket. So the rocket that will be flying on a H motor, H impulse motor, in order to get my level 1 certification, if all goes well with the Tripoli Rocketry Association. That is the only organization that is recognized in Australia. When I say recognized, it's the only association, it's the only international one. So outside of the US, pretty much always going to be Tripoli, which is fine. In the US there's NAR as well. Apparently a third. Not sure. Man, like my hand's wobbling as I'm adding a wave to this fillet. You know what? It's not looking half bad. Don't know if you can get a good view of what's going on here, but it's not. It's really not too bad. Not too unhappy with that for a first fin. You know, there comes a point when you're doing this where touching it is just going to make it worse. But can you imagine doing this with 5-minute epoxy? You know, it just won't look as good. Simple as that. Now gravity will play into our favor. It will just smooth out some of the edges if you hadn't smoothed them properly. So that's one bonus. It is certainly an art. Oh yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah, I'm reaching a interesting tacky point here. Keep getting distracted. Sorry, guys. Whoops. Yeah, I'm sort of doing the thing I said of getting a little bit of too much of a perfectionist. But that's okay. Yeah, I was gonna say, in the past, on my first NPR rocket, which you can see on my community tab on my channel, I posted a couple times because I did disappear for a while. There's a whole long story behind that. I swear that wasn't on purpose. Part of it was, but yeah, for my mid-power rocket, lots of issues just trying to get to a launch event, or getting cancelled or delayed, or me not being able to attend them for any reason, for whatever reason. So big frustration there for me. Regardless, that rocket, for the fillets, I tried using epoxy putty, which is like a 2-part epoxy, but it forms like a clay, and it was really quite difficult to work with because of the consistency. Like as soon as it starts drying, it will no longer stick to whatever you're trying to get it on. It will stick to your fingers, or whatever you're using to make the form the fillet. I tried using. Oh, see, gravity's on my side. Yeah, I tried using that. I had a little PVC pipe I used to form them, but basically it gave me a really thick, meaty, like fillet with so much strength. Very overkill for the rocket, but I thought, you know what, I really want this shape, and in the end it looked fine. I wasn't too upset about how it turned out. It was just really tricky to work with, so I probably won't use that method again. For this rocket, which is called the Orion C1, stands for Composite 1. The fillets on this bad boy, whoops, they're just 5-minute epoxy. See how shiny they are? They're not too bad looking, if I look too closely, but I didn't have enough time to finish the rest of I didn't prime any of that surface before painting it, which meant, yeah, it doesn't look as good as it could have. Very much a rushed project. But that's the fillet pretty much done. It's not perfect, I'll tell you that. Keep giving it, bit of a touch up. Yeah, this is what I mean, getting epoxy on your hands a little bit. Really isn't that bad of a thing to get on you though. It's not too much of a concern. It's not toxic, really. Well, it is, but you know what I mean. Not as toxic as some other things. Wow, yeah. Not super easy to work with. This is why there's such thing as rock epoxy. Basically one that doesn't sag, which means you can kind of form it however you like. I'm not sure what it's like to work with. Like, how does it still have not too much viscosity that it's not going to drip, but enough where you can easily form it? Because the thing I had with the epoxy clay is that it's like essentially almost a solid when you're working with it. It's ultra viscous, which is challenging. But anyway, this is looking quite nice. Yeah, for certain angles, it's a bit wavy, but I'm hoping gravity will just flatten that out as I go. But anyways, here's a question. Are you going to have electronics or motor ejection? Now, for this flight, for my first attempt, I'm going to do motor deploy. It's sort of recommended when you're doing an L1 at least, just because sort of less things that can fail. Like, you want your L1 to be as simple as possible. But like, if you've got it already covered, go for an electronic deployment. L2 though, which I am also planning on doing all three at some point. L1 obviously the soonest. L2 you have to have dual deploy to get your certification. So I will have to think about that at some point, and sort of looking at Altus Metrum for that. Cheapest, but that's not it. It's pretty reliable, pretty well known. So I'll go with an Altus Metrum, probably flight computer of some description, dual deploy computer, And yeah, and I mean, the sucky thing with dual deploy is that you need black powder, and that just adds extra issues and complexity, especially if you're in Australia, to get that sorted. But yeah, no computer for this flight, but a computer for L2. And when are you uploading a new video? Great question. It's in the works. I was on hiatus for quite some time, and that was partially due to me not getting my NPR done in the time I wanted to. My NPR certification, I mean. So, this rocket. And also I've started university. So, obviously that takes up a lot of my time. I had about 6 months off after high school to like try and get as many rocket projects as possible. So I had some of those big videos I made were because I had a lot of free time, and now I just don't have that kind of free time. But I think this is a great medium because it's content that can just exist. I can make it, the time it takes to make is exactly how long it goes for. But it depends if people enjoy it and if people are going to turn up. So maybe the more I do it, the more people will come. Maybe I can sort out some of the technical issues I had. But I think for the most part, it's gone decently well. But yeah, I got like a whole thing going on with the scenes and everything. But yeah, at this point we can just hang out. So if you want to say anything in chat, I'll be here for a little bit. There's not a whole lot more I want to do for this stream. So yeah, not a huge stream, obviously. If this was 5-minute epoxy, I could glue on all the fins right now. But, you know, one of the issues with this is it's going to take a much longer time to get everything glued in. So I am going to have to essentially wait. You could do it in the morning and then come back and do another fin in the afternoon. Or even, you could probably do all three in one day. But if I did that, it'd get pretty late for me. So, I am still... I could still do some painting. What is the time? Okay, I've been going for a little bit. I'll quickly show you maybe the nose cone. I gave it a good scuff. Here's our nose cone. I will be painting it black, but there's a lot of flashing and whatnot on it. So this is the nose cone. Again, if you don't know, I might actually just quickly post a link to what the rocket is supposed to look like. Lock precision. Yeah, lock is pretty cool. They got a lot of great stuff. Lock precision, high tech. It's called this kit. I'll just send you to the Apogee website for it. I'll chuck it in chat if you want to have a gander at that. Now, for those of you that are here, hold on. Wow, where's that tab? Here we go. Yeah, it's pointy. It is quite pointy. It's a nice looking kit in my opinion. Like the proportions are really cool. Yeah, for those of you that are here, this rocket I'm going to call it Pathfinder, which is a pretty generic name for most aerial vehicles of any description, especially spacecraft. But I don't know, it fits the description of what this rocket is to me. Very much a pathfinder for me into high power rocketry. So for those of you that are still sticking around, you might get a bonus sneak peek at what the paint scheme is going to look like. Now, if you go on that Apogee website, you can see it's got an orange and white theme. I've got lots of orange spray paint, so a lot of my rockets have had orange highlights, and I think it just looks really cool. So this rocket is also going to be black and white and a little bit orange. So it's called Pathfinder. I want to show you something really cool that I think you'll appreciate. I'll be back in just a second. I've planned this quite ahead of time. I got myself a decal for the airframe. So that's what's going to be going on the airframe. I just got it at a sticker shop. This is actually meant to be a bumper sticker, but it was just quite like the perfect dimensions as a body tube decal for the rocket. And of course, I've got ARRO logos as well. So that's just great. I love that. Nice high gloss sticker. It's going to look fantastic, I think. And so that will be a bit more orange highlight. Yeah. I'm happy to just chill a little bit for now. If you have any questions about anything I'm up to or anything you would like to see in the future, because, you know, there's a lot you can do with high power rockets. One thing I would love to do is, I love multi-stage model rockets. I think that's quite a cool feat. So I would love to do just a high power 2-stage rocket at some point, or at least a mid power 2-stage rocket, perhaps with electronic ignition of the upper stage. Actually, 115, have you considered music for your streams? I mentioned this a second ago. I don't think I can get it set up for this stream, but I realized maybe these streams would be great with a bit of music in the background. So definitely should consider that. I can just add it as a audio input into OBS, can't I? Into the different scenes. But I don't have anything set up at the moment. But if you come to the next stream, I'll make it a promise. I'll get music set up. I think that'd be such a vibe instead of just my voice. Yes, I will add music. Thank you for that. Yeah. Yeah. Cool stuff. Are you going to build any rocket gliders? See, that's a great low power rocket project. Yeah, I believe it or not, I've built 2 rocket gliders, or one lifting body and one glider that I was not confident would work, so I've kind of left them. I built them a long time ago. But yes, I was definitely considering, like, I don't know if you guys have seen Dr. Zooch on YouTube. He built these really cool lifting body, like, he put ants in them, but it made them a whole, like, cinematic masterpiece of a video, several videos. But yeah, it was like a lifting body that he attached to the side of a rocket, and it floated down. But yeah, a rocket glider would be a great RC rocket gliders. Yeah, those are sick. Like, we can actually control them down. Definitely should do that at some point, I reckon. Definitely a technically challenging thing. I'm not too experienced with planes. I've never built a remote control plane. I've only flown one like a couple times. Definitely more of a rocket guy, but that is absolutely such a cool project, and probably difficult to do with a mid-power rocket, but I reckon as an LPR. I've seen people do it at the rocket club I went to. There was a couple RC gliders, and some passive ones as well. Passive ones are a bit simpler, because you can just press a button and not worry about it. But yeah, absolutely. Rocket gliders are sick. And there's like space shuttle replica videos on YouTube as well, of like the full space shuttle mock, fully functional. Sick. That's another thing I'd love to do at LPR, is a bit of a simpler project, but booster pods. So it involves a bit more clustering, which I have a bit of experience with now, but cluster 3 or more engines and have 2 of them separate like SRBs. I think that would be quite cool. So if you want to see that, let me know, because I did plan to do that a long time ago, and then sort of got distracted with other projects. But I think that would be a great video, and something definitely in my skill set. So that is a good idea. Yeah. Love that. How are these fillets looking? they're not too bad. They don't have a lot of volume to them, but not too concerned about that. If I really want to add more volume, I can add more glue later on, but it's not going to really add much structure to it. Okay, the other thing with fillets is that technically it's... Not technically, yes. It does improve aerodynamic performance. But sort of the main reason why you do them is for structural reasons at this scale. You know, you see those big metal, like aluminium fin cans on like the larger liquid rockets or whatever. Very little concern for aerodynamics when they just like bolt on a bracket that bolts the fin on. But man, just having a mechanical joint like that kind of simplifies it. We're not worrying about like a chemical/mechanical joint that glue is. Yeah. Mojave Sphinx. If you guys haven't seen that, Google the Mojave Sphinx. That's the other rocket I mentioned that flew at Balls. They got permission from TRA. Gosh, that's such a cool rocket. And like how consistently they're able to launch it and how many experiments they're able to do on it. Quite a cool project, I will say. That is a sick rocket to watch. And there's something about like liquids and hybrids where like you don't get any smoke trail from the plume. It just kind of looks like it floats in the air. There's something really cool about that because like all solid rockets like you know, kick out so much smoke. I love alternate propulsion methods. But yeah, looks epic. Thank you. It's only got one fin on at the moment because I'm using not 5-minute epoxy, but it's not looking too bad. I can't really move it around and show you too much, but yeah, don't have to worry about fin alignment. It's already aligned. It's kind of seeping into the wood there, but I'm not too mad about how that looks. This rocket also has like a payload bay, so you can add, you know, quite a lot of experiments to it if you'd like. You can add you can experiment with your own flight computers, which is something I'd love to do as well. Is if I want to do like a multi-stage rocket with like a computer ignited second stage, then yeah, testing out a flight computer would be a great idea. So yeah, if you've just joined, I've currently glued in 2 of the centering rings from my motor mount into the body tube, and I'm gluing one of the fins in at the moment, but I'm using quite long setting epoxy, so it'll be a while before it dries. So there's not a whole lot more I can do at the moment. So we're just hanging around for a little bit, so stick around, ask any questions if you'd like to see anything. Yeah. If you weren't here before, you missed out on the decal I got. So, are you gonna launch any baby kangaroos? I will say no to that. No on that offer. But yeah, anything that's a vertebrate, not a great idea. I mean, the poor invertebrates, but they don't have the same. We don't have the same outlook on invertebrates as we do vertebrates. I have launched ants before to some controversy, so I haven't done it again. But I'll have you know, I did release them exactly where I found them, and they were alive. I built a little capsule for them. It was good fun. Yeah, I've launched ants a couple times. That was a while ago. Not super interesting anymore to do that. Yeah. It's good fun. Yeah. Lots of things to consider. Yeah, if you're thinking of doing an L1 certification anytime soon, I'd recommend Lock. They're pretty easy to put together kits. They give you a good idea on how to put together high power rocket kits. So, you know, once you learn how to do it once, you sort of know what you're doing. That is to say, eventually, I would like to venture into fiberglass, just because it's just a lot stronger, and you know, you'll a mate of mine attempted his mid-power certification, or was it high-power L1 certification with an NPR rocket, and he got a big zipper because he used the exact same postal tube as this rocket. And with fiberglass, you're just guaranteed a lot more to avoid zippers. That's when your shot cord like pulls against the top of your body tube, and you get a lot of force that just rips your body tube apart. Here we go. Here's another question. Are you going to build your own launch tower and launch controller? Launch tower. I've already built my own launch pad. All my LPR, well, the vast majority of my LPR rockets launched on what I called LCA, which is like a little launch pad. It's sitting over there at the moment. But yeah, if you go back to any of my LPR rockets, like my 2-stage rocket video, that's a custom launch pad. And the main reason I did that, firstly, it's cool. It looks cool. And secondly, it allows me to put GoPros in spots I wanted to without having to... I just put permanent GoPro holders where I wanted the GoPros to be on the launch pad. It just made it easier. And it also means I put a PVC T-section underneath it with a bit of an aluminium can, and that just means that the smoke gets diverted both sides. And oh man, every time a rocket launches on that launch pad, it looks so cool with the smoke going out both ends. So A, it looks cool. B, it allows me to put GoPros in places I want to. Launch controller though, not really a reason for me to build my own launch controller, because I did buy a GoBox launch controller, which I ended up using for most of my LPR launches in the end, which hooked up to a 12-volt lead-acid battery. The reason I got that was to launch my cluster rocket, which I only ended up launching at a club event, which, you know, if you know anything about club launches, you don't use your own launch controller. You don't press the button or anything. It's their setup, and they have 12-volt. They hook it up to a car battery. So I haven't really needed it. It has made it so I've had more reliable ignition and faster ignition, just because there's a lot more current going through the igniter with a 12-volt lead-acid setup, low internal resistance and everything. So no, I've got 2 of those actually at the moment. I've got 2 GoBox launch controllers. I got them from Apogee. They're great. Would highly recommend. You do have to buy a separate 12-volt battery. I bought motorcycle batteries. Just means it's small and easy to transport. But yeah, certainly a good purchase. Even if you're launching like, you know, LPR rockets and you're just going to do it more frequently, investing in a nice launch controller just feels nicer, and just guarantees ignition a little bit more. So if you're willing to spend a little bit on that, yeah, I'd highly recommend it. It's good launch controller. But yeah, I'm mostly launching at club events now. I've moved cities, so I don't have my regular launch site anymore, and I'm not sure I have another one yet, or I will have another one yet. So at the moment, I'm sort of sticking to, now it's going to be New South Wales Rocketry Association launch events out at Wayland. That's what I'm sticking to at the moment. I did, obviously, my water rocket video with Air Command Rockets. That was great. That was great fun. Great meeting up with him in person. Yeah, they've got a whole set up there. It's fantastic. If you're ever in the area and you have a water rocket, bring it to them. They'll send it flying. They got a lot higher pressure than I was able to with just a hand pump. I have invested in a actual proper electric pump now for water rockets. Just haven't had the opportunity to use it yet. I certainly will though. At some point, water rockets are pretty easy to find a park for. Just a bit trickier when you're using actual black powder motors. Let's have a look on these fillets now. Oh yeah, gravity's doing wonders on these fillets, guys. You know what? I might bring you down so you can get a nice proper look at this. see what we got here. So they're not looking too bad, I will say. Gravity sort of did me a favor there. Want to keep it as upright as possible. Bit of a lack of light there on that side, but yeah, I love it. It's not looking too shabby. Put you guys back up there. Not looking too shabby, but listen guys, if you don't have any more questions or thoughts on this, it's a bit of a short, well, I've been going for about an hour and 40 minutes, so but yeah, no, I haven't done a whole lot of progress, but you know what? I'll just stream again and do some more progress at some point when I have the time. I might do some stuff in between. Like, I already started the build, right? I already did the mode map. That's just because, like, you know, every stream is going to kind of be short little steps in making this. But if you come around to every stream, you'll get the chance to see it come together bit by bit. But yeah, I don't know. It's just fun to hang out. So please, if you know, would love to see more of this, let me know. I will get music next time. I think that's a great idea. Does it have 3 fins or 4 fins? This rocket has 3 fins. Yeah, my NPR rocket here has 4 fins. If I can, yeah, this has 4 fins. This rocket has 3 fins. They're pretty big fins for the size of the rocket. So yeah, great stability caliber. I've simulated an open rocket and everything. Yeah, typical 3-fin rocket. 3 fins and a nose cone, really, and a payload bay and a motor mount and motor mount retainer. Yeah. No, I'm hoping to make this quite a high quality build. Obviously, so when I lose it, I get very sad. You'll hear all about that when I when I upload my video about my NPR set. But yeah, I think that's about it, right? I think we'll call it there. This has been good fun. I think I'll definitely do this again, and maybe some more people come along for this, and we'll make it a thing. Yeah, this is great. Thank you all for coming along for this. Thank you for those that stuck around with this stream. I hope you enjoyed just sort of more of a casual sort of vibe, but putting together this rocket here. So to recap, we glued in our motor mount, and we put a fin in, and we added our fillets, both internal and external. So not too bad with progress. Honestly, it's kind of a big step in the build process to make sure you know your technique's on point. Yeah, and so this will be great. The next fins will be easy to do. Maybe next time I'll have all fins in, and we'll work on. Maybe we'll be working on the payload bay. Maybe some painting. If you guys are interested, some painting would be fun. Really put this thing together. Yeah, but thanks everyone for sticking around. I'll see you next time. Thank you.